Okay. So today we're going to discuss how we could possibly uncover our hidden strengths that every one of us have. You know, have you ever been called on to do something either because the circumstances demands it, or you've been called on to do something that's not for you, but there's no one else to do it? Like, for instance, you're not such an organized person, but you were chosen to do an event at the synagogue. You know, you're not a leader, but your boss asked you a project for your company. What's the correct thing to do? To take the role because you know that it's going to challenge you, so maybe you should agree to take the role. Or maybe the correct thing to do, take the role, or because you know that it's not for you, maybe decline it. Maybe say that I can't do it. Step aside and call someone else to do it. Maybe it's not for me. Today we're going to talk about that it's an incorrect. Good evening, Jeffrey. Hi.
Hi, Rabbi. Hi, everyone.
Hello. So today Today we're going to discuss that the easy way out is to say it's not for me and I can't do it. The proper thing to do is to take it even though it's too complicated. Sometimes you must do what's being demanded, even though it doesn't fit with your personality. Failure to grab the bull by its horns could be you're losing out on an opportunity and you're ruining a talent that you might have deep inside you. As we learn in the parsha, that it would be an embarrassment for you not to do and uncover your ability you possibly have. In the beginning of this week's Torah portion, Jacob is returning to Israel after being away for over 20 years. He's being reunited with his brother that hates him, his brother Esau. So you're talking about a unity, that two people getting together from being apart for so many years. As we see here in text number 1a. Jacob sends angels and asks the angels, please go to my brother Esau and let's see what the circumstances are. And the angels come back and tell Jacob and paint a really bad picture. Esau is still resentful. He is not ready to make peace. He gathered for war with 400 men. What is Yaakov supposed to do? Yaakov does 3 things, as you see here in text number 1b. 3 things he does. Number 1, brings him a present. If you're in a fight and you have an enemy, bring them a present. Number 2, pray. Pray to God. Number 3, get ready for battle. Get ready to fight if necessary. Well, wait a minute. Isn't this obvious? I mean, it's not it's not rocket science. So you see here, he brings him presents. He prepares for war, and he prays. Now, isn't it something that's pretty obvious? You say you hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Seems pretty legitimate. Doesn't seem like any anything unique over here that Jacob is doing. What is so special about what Jacob was accomplishing over here? Jacob was trying to avoid conflict. He was ready for it if necessary. Basically, what the idea is, I'll give you presents, I'll pray, and if I have to, I'll fight the war. Well, Jacob, we know, was a yeshiva boy. He was a peaceful guy. He wasn't interested in fighting. So let's understand a few things have to be understood here. Why was he ready now for conflict? Why over 20 years ago didn't he fight with his brother already when his brother wanted to kill him 20 plus years ago? Why didn't he fight against his brother then? Why was he only to prepare for a fight now? A couple more questions. Rashi says he prepared himself for a battle. As you see here in the text, it means fixed. So it says he fixed himself with three things. Why use the word fixed? Prepare, get ready, but he fixed. In the South, some people use the phrase, I'm fixing to go to the store. This is a sort of an accent that you might hear in some places in America. But usually you say, I'm going to the store. You don't say, I'm fixing to go to the store. But some people do use that term. Why would the Torah use the word to fix? And why does Rashi have to say that he did three things? It's pretty obvious. If you look in the Torah, you will see that there are three things. Let's first understand and try to have a better understanding who Jacob was. If we understand who Jacob was, we might be able to understand the background behind everything he did to prepare for this moment. Not just being Jacob a good father, a good husband, a good son, but let's try to understand his personality. And if we understand Jacob's personality, we'll be able to have a much better understanding of what's going on here. Let's understand the spiritual part of Jacob. Everyone has their unique character. People are more quiet. Some people are more loud. Some people are more serious. Some people are more happy. Some people like to create new things all the time. Some people like habits. They don't like traveling. They don't like change. They like the same routine every day. There's different types of people. Some people are kind. Some people are more strict. Some people are more outgoing. Some people are more introverts. They like to be to themselves. According to the Kabbalah, this comes from a person's spiritual makeup of the 10 sfirot. Chachma, Bina, Dat, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and so on and so forth. Each person's personality comes from one of these 10 attributes. So let's pick a famous example in this concept. You've probably heard of Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel is the school of Hillel in the Talmud, which discusses it, and then Beit Shammai that have many debates between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel in the Torah. But if you look at the recurring theme of Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel is always lenient and Beit Shammai is always more strict. Maybe we could say, possibly, Beit Hillel was a nice guy. If there's an argument in the Torah, if you should be strict or lenient, he says, okay, I'll be strict, I'll be lenient because I'm a nice guy. Beit Shammai was more strict because he was more severity, he was more tough. Beit Hillel was a better person. Now, so maybe that's the way to look at it. The reason he was more lenient was because he was more kind. And maybe the reason he was more strict was because he was more, he had more severity. He was more gevura. But it's not so simple. When you make ruling of the halacha, if it's permitted to do something on Shabbat or not, just as an example, it says on Shabbat, you shouldn't drag a chair on the floor. Because if you drag it on the grass, you might rip out some grass. Beit Hillel says, no problem. You might rip out grass, you might not. So therefore, what Beit Hillel basically says is that you're allowed to do it. Beit Shammai says no, because there's a small chance that you might rip out the grass, so therefore it's not allowed. But there's something much deeper here. This is not just a basic idea that he was the nice guy and he was more strict. There's something much deeper here. You know, kindness and closeness is the idea of chesed. That's the root of the soul of Hillel. Beit Shammai's soul was rooted in strength and restraint. He was much more strict. He viewed the world was viewed by Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai based on their type of souls, as you see from the Zohar here in text number 3. Depending on their soul, that depends on what the halacha verdict was. As you see here, Hillel is like Abraham, which is more strict, and Shammai is like Yitzchak, which is more kindness and closeness, and Shammai is like Yitzchak, which is more strength and restraint. So when it comes to logic, there's always more than one way to look at things. You can look at it with logic, and you can look at it in another way. So for instance, Beit Hillel was lenient and Beit Shammai was strict because that's the mechanism of their soul. That's how their souls run. Of course, it affected their personality. And therefore, Hillel had more patience and Shammai was more direct to people. So if we could understand a person's spiritual makeup, we can understand from where they're coming. And then we'll be able to connect more. Now, it's true the same by every one of us. And it's true for Hillel and Shammai. And of course, the same thing is by our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As we said before, Abraham and Yitzchak were chesed and gevura, kindness and severity. In Chassidut, we explain the behavior of Abraham. Look at the Torah, how Abraham behaved. Abraham invited guests. He helped the poor. He engaged with the people around him. Isaac was more reserved. He dug wells. Jacob also had this behavior. So if we understand Jacob's soul and the mechanism of his soul, then we might be able to understand our questions before. What and how was Jacob's behavior? Hillel, as we said before, was kindness, and therefore he was more lenient. Shammai was more strict. But you know, every rule has every single rule has an exception to the rule. Beit Hillel was lenient. Beit Shammai was more strict. Now, if you look in this text number 4, it says if an egg was born on the holiday, meaning if a chicken laid an egg on Yom Tif, not on Shabbat, on Yom Tif, on any Jewish holiday, Beit Shammai says you're allowed to eat it, and Beit Hillel says, no, it's forbidden. One example of Beit Hillel being more lenient, more strict, and Beit Shammai being more lenient. Another example, in regards to eating chametz on Passover, Beit Hillel says if you eat even a smaller amount, you're already liable, and Beit Shammai says you have to eat a large amount to be liable. You have to eat a larger amount to be liable according to Beit Shammai, which means Beit Shammai is more lenient, and Beit Hillel says even a lesser amount you're liable, which means Beit Hillel is more strict. Now, when we see that sometimes they change their opinion, it actually shows on something fascinating. It gives credibility to each one on their opinion. Like the Supreme Court, if they're going to always follow their party, then it doesn't show that they're making an honest opinion. It doesn't show that they have an honest opinion. The only proper debate, we know that Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai have a correct debate because we know that they don't always say the same thing. There are few times maybe, but they do have a different opinion. So if they change their opinion, it's a proof that they consider the other person's opinion. So it's based on logic, it's not based on emotions. But wait a minute, according to what we said before, that Beit Hillel's soul is kindness and Beit Shammai's soul is severity, how could they change their opinion? How could it be that Beit Shammai is strict if his soul is a lenient soul? Think of it like this. If your soul is kindness, how could you be strict? If your soul is strict, how could you be kind? So the answer is, it's more complex. Hillel's souls may be stronger when it comes, his soul is maybe stronger to make a verdict of kindness. His Beit Shammai's soul is bound to say severity, but it doesn't mean that they can't change. And as the Alter Rebbe says in the Tanya, that all of us have 10 attributes. We all consist of 10 attributes. But there's some people that are more towards being strict. There are some people that are more towards kindness. But sometimes it will switch. We have the responsibility and the ability to reveal all of the 10 sfirot. You can be a kind Jew, but sometimes you have to step up to the table and be strict. You have to take your inner reserves of severity. Sometimes you can be very strict, and sometimes you have to take your reserves of being kind. Sometimes you have to change. A good example would be if a child misbehaves in school or even at home, there's usually an underlying reason why he's behaving like that. There's a reason. So if you're going to get very upset at the child, then he's probably not going to change. If you're going to be kind to him and respond in a kind way, it's going to help him to change because he's probably looking for love. He's probably lacking love, whether it's at home or at school. And when you treat him with kindness, it will solve that problem. Sometimes you have to be strict. If he's running into the street, you can't not scream. Or if he's hurting somebody, you have to get frustrated at him. But at the same time, you have to know when. Sometimes you have to use your judgment of being kind. And sometimes you have to use your judgment of being more severity and being more strict. Look at a soldier in the army. A soldier in the army could be the kindest individual, such a sweet, generous person. But when it comes to fighting the battle, he has to be extremely tough. He has to go and he has to show strictness and he has to fight with all his strength. We live in a real world with real problems. You could be a good person, but you can't afford to always be a kind person. If there's no balance, you will behave with severity when you have to be kind, and you will behave kind when you have to have severity. Look at this fascinating statement in text number 6 from Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, quoted in the Medrash. Whoever has mercy when they have to be nasty, the end is they will be nasty when they have to have mercy. So sometimes you have to be nasty or cruel based on the circumstances. If you're not, then you won't be able to have the balance when it's necessary. Let's pick another example with none other than Abraham Avinu. Avraham, we all know, the first of our forefathers, Abraham, was tested 10 times. Hashem asked him to go kill his son on the altar. After he passed that test, Hashem said, as you see here in text number 7, Hashem said, now I know you're a God-fearing person. But wait a minute. Think about it. Now he said, now I know you're a God-fearing person. Didn't Hashem know from the first 9 tests that Abraham is God-fearing? It took 9 tests for Hashem to realize that Abraham fears him. But when God challenged the core of who Abraham is against his nature, till now we don't know if Abraham is really serving Hashem for Hashem or he's serving Hashem for himself. But now that he went against his nature, because we all know Abraham was Mr. Kindness. He was the epitome of kindness. And when he went and he was willing to kill his only son, means that he was practicing severity. That's why Hashem said, now I know you're a God-fearing person. You're serving me, not who you really are. You're serving me with your deep strengths that you're bringing out. So we began the class with asking a question. Should you do something even though it's not your strong point? Or should you say, let someone else, it's not my problem? Well, the answer is no. As the Alter Rebbe explained, everyone has character traits, everyone has kindness, everyone has severity, everyone has leadership. With a little effort, you will be able to learn the steps to go even higher, to develop the potential that's deep inside. It's not easy, but we're equipped to do it. The Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, takes it even to a higher step. When someone that's more strict has to reveal kindness, don't think that his kindness is only going to be halfway and it's not going to be felt 100%. But no, because he has the ability inside him, and he has the ability of being kind. So let's say you're a strict person, you get angry, you always get frustrated, and then you say, you know what, today I'm going to behave kind. Don't think that it's not going to be 100%. It will be 100% because deep inside, that's who you really are. When you work hard to reveal it, sometimes it might even be stronger than someone else that already has it. Because as we see here in text number 8b, everyone has the ability to reveal it. Everyone has the ability to bring out the kindness that they have deep inside them. You just have to work a little effort. In other words, as we're going to elaborate in a moment, you have the strength of being kind. Let's say the time demands or the moment demands that you have to be strict. You have the ability deep inside you to be strict. Now we could explain about the reunity of Esau and Jacob. We asked before, when Jacob left to Haran, when he first started the fight against Esau, he wasn't ready to fight. Why now was he ready to make the fight with his brother? Well, even though he was a peaceful man and he was so peaceful even now at this moment, but for the need of the moment, he worked on himself to take out his inner strengths to fight against his brother Esau. And that's why Rashi uses the word fixed. He fixed himself. He prepared himself to fight his brother. He didn't just get ready. He fixed. He put in the great effort so he should be able to accomplish that. Rashi doesn't only say he did three things. No, he had to work hard and uncover some deep challenge that's inside him to be able to succeed this. And now we're able to answer the questions. What was the effort, we asked? Okay, it's pretty obvious. You have three things. But let's look at them. Each one of these three things demanded its own state of mind. You know, look at it sort of when you're talking to someone nice, and then you have to yell at someone because the situation requires it. And then you have to yell at someone, and then you have to be nice at someone. Each situation, within 5 minutes, you have to change your mood. Here you're talking about Yaakov did three things, which each one puts you in a different mood. Fight a battle demands a special mindset. I'm fighting. Prayer, forget about yourself. You know what prayer does? Hashem, it's in your hands. I'm doing nothing. There's nothing I could do. I give up. And maybe there's actually nothing you can do. Sometimes there's absolutely nothing you could do. You say to Hashem, it's in your hands. You need to put yourself aside. When you're fighting a battle, you really need to be involved. Presents, when he brought gifts, you need to be loving and a state of mind of caring and loving to give a gift. In order to be ready for all these three states of mind and in those circumstances, Jacob had to think out of the box. He had to think deep in himself to accomplish it. And that's why Rashi uses the word fixing. He had to prepare himself. He had to get himself ready for it. Use all your strengths. Don't be scared to use all of them at the same time. But why? Why did Jacob have to do 3 things? Why not only one? And stick to it. Okay, you decide you're fighting a battle, stick to the battle. Fight your brother. Why are you getting involved in presence and in prayer? Well, if you want to win, you have to aim all your guns to one direction. You must be completely prepared. When there's challenges and we do the conventional tactic, one-on-one, whether it's a tough customer in business or a challenge you're having with a teacher's child, with a child's teacher, or you need to get rid of some negative behavior that you have inside you, we need to source energy. We need to look for resources, which is deep inside you. You know, sometimes people get angry. Sometimes we get frustrated. Some people have these behaviors. You need to take many strengths inside you. Don't limit yourself. Try to fight it from all angles. Yaakov understood this very well. If he wants to win his brother, he must focus on many things. Our soul has unlimited capacity. You have the strength to accomplish a lot. Each emotion gets strength from the others. And Rashi says this by using the word fixed. Yaakov wasn't looking for a natural behavior. He uncovered the deep part of his soul. Especially when it comes to Judaism. When you need to work with your impulse, when your negative behaviors, distractions. According to the Kabbalah, unity is only in spiritual worlds. Klipa and negativity is not unity. Selfishness and ego, you only focus on yourself, you don't focus on God. You're not here for a divine purpose. When you want to overcome something negative, you need unity within yourself. And it takes a lot of strength. Your enemy doesn't have this power. Because when something is very negative, there's only one angle. There's no unity. What it means is love for holiness, the opposite is love for evil, is love for bad things. So the opposite of love to holiness is love for negativity. That's it. In holiness, there could be many types together. So if you have love to holiness, the only thing that could fight is love to negativity. That's it. That's one angle. But when you have love for holiness, with that, you have many other things together. You have kindness, you have severity, you have a whole bunch of other things that come with it. There's a push in society today. People want to identify themselves. They want to identify their personalities. Who am I? And it's extremely valid. we should harness those traits of who you really are, which come naturally, and develop what comes naturally. But sometimes you must think much more broad. You must be much larger. If your boss asks you to do something and it's not your nature, or you're in a situation to help, but you really don't want to, but there's no one else to do it, it makes no difference if you're fit for it or not. Don't be stuck in your single-minded track. Think like Jacob out of the box, even if it's against your nature. Do that with your nature, and you will see wonders.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, I'm listening to everything that you're saying, and then and you said something about 100%, and it made me realize that Abraham had his son when he was 100, right? And I think he lived to 175 as Jacob did. So these guys went through a lot and had a lot of life experience. And, you say to somebody, you don't even know what you don't know when you're young. And I'm just wondering, like in the concept of time, if Abraham or Jacob or any of the biblical figures would have made these same decisions when they were younger. I mean, Abraham had failed 10 times, right? And he was how old when he did that? So he had more life experience. With us, our ages, if we had more time to make more mistakes, we might become older and wiser. So I'm just wondering, when you think of it in terms of age, these weren't young men when they were doing their thing. They had all this experience. I can imagine having kids at 100, but he had all that experience to bear, right? If he was 25.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. But what happens today is, you think about it, Jacob had children, he was 80 years old already. So in other words, because life is less, we mature a lot quicker.
Maybe we don't. Yeah, maybe we don't. I mean, maybe we would, but and I think sometimes, like in life, I was just reading something the other day that the guy, James Dyson, who made a Dyson vacuum cleaner, made 5,000 mistakes until he was successful. That's a product. But I'm just saying,
that's a very good point.
The more mistakes you make, the more you learn. And but you always hear about their ages, and they had a lot more life experience. So it's just very interesting when you put it in that context.
Yeah, it's very true. But you know what? If you think about it, really, you look at people in modern days. I mean, look at the Maimonides, look at Rashi, look at the Arizal. The Arizal lived to 36 years old, and look what he accomplished in his life. He wrote the whole Zohar and the Kabbalah. I mean, you're talking about giants. And in comparison to life in general, 100 years ago, the average life was in the 50s. So, we've gone a long way still in comparison to them. But yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it.
And I think Maimonides said something like, "It's good to make a mistake so you won't make that mistake again."
Right.
So,
and look at Noah. He spent 120 years building the ark, and it was only what was it? It was only about a little over 10% of his life. He lived to 950. So 120 years is just about 10% of his life.
Right. So just imagine how much more we can do if we live to be 170.
What happened is Hashem, the more corruption might happen. So that's one of the reasons he cut the life, But when Mashiach comes, we'll all live for really long, which is coming very soon. So yes.
So maybe the Southerners are right when they say they're fixing to do something.
Yeah, I know. It's true. Probably the sound of where it comes from. Yeah. Right. I'm fixing to go to the store. So
right. It sounds funny, but maybe they are onto something.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they're much better prepared than we are. They're well prepared to spend the money or not spend the money, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let me just finish one last thought. So, so if you're challenging good versus evil, you should know this point. If you will build up the courage to dig deep in yourself and harness the seatbelt and uncover personalities that you have, take a strategy that allows you to give yourself more strength. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable against your normal nature. Then you will succeed beyond your wildest imaginations. It is only when you come up with new ideas, new personality type, then you will be successful. So, Steve, the advantage, if we could say, of shorter lives is that hopefully we get our act together quicker. Where when people lived to 900 years, they were never in a rush to do anything. You know, why get married and have kids now? I could wait till I'm 800. You know, so it's sort of, if you want to relax or go on that vacation that you've been meaning to do, you know that, you know, our life is limited and so on and so forth. So why would we, so that's one angle. You know, long life, according to many, is arichut yamim, explained in many places, is not necessarily amount of years, but it's meaningful years. Utilizing our time properly could have a better meaning of long life. Could have someone that lived till over 100, but they didn't, you know, they didn't do much throughout their life. They maybe wasted a lot of time. But when you utilize your time and occupy our time properly, that's called real long life. All right. So this is why Jacob prepared himself with all these three things, because he was uncovering his deepest possible strength that allowed him to succeed in this battle. All right. Sei gesund. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. It's great to see you all.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi. Bye, everybody.
Bye.